Welcome to the Healthspan Collective, the podcast where science and wellness converge. I'm Nicole Doran, and I'm thrilled to have you join us as we dive into the world of regenerative medicine, integrative health, and the latest science and trends shaping how we live healthier for longer. All right. Ella Davar, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So you are known as the longevity dietitian and gut health expert. I just could go a million directions with you, but I think the most important place to start is how you got to where you are. Can you tell us a little bit about your personal story and what led you to becoming this, super highly qualified longevity dietitian?
Well, thank you for asking about my personal story. I don't usually share it, but I feel like I should. My personal story and how I grew up. I grew up in Russia in a small town and very close to the nature and the land. So my grandparents had a huge farm and they were 100% self-sufficient on the food and produce to feed the entire family. There's 15 of us in the family.
Oh, wow.
And all of the summers and all of the weekends I would spend on their farm taking care of the plants, the produce, the animals, and I would take care of all of that during the summer, and I would see how the animals would get slaughtered in the late fall so the family has food throughout the winter.
Oh, wow.
And it only made sense how by the spring there is not much food left, right?
Yeah.
Because of the long winters. And that's when fasting and Lent comes in, when everyone turns into plant-based. So for me, nutrition science that I later on studied at NYU really came naturally. I learned it through my upbringing, right? And not a lot of people have a story like that.
Yeah.
But I'll give you a twist here on how I got into nutrition science. By the age of 15 or 16, I developed an inflammatory condition called gastritis.
Really?
Yes.
Even though you were eating everything straight from the farm.
Food is not everything, right? No matter how much broccoli you eat, how I teach my clients now, if you hate your life or if you internalize a lot of stress and trauma, your body and psychosomatic connection and the gut-brain connection really can create the difference and create some of the problems. And so my father was very austere. I was brought up like a soldier. Don't feel, just do the right thing. The discipline, everything in our house. I had to be a straight A student. And as a young, sensitive girl, I was just our values didn't align. I was struggling. And so I remember the day when I got diagnosed with gastritis. I was a young teenager and I was sitting in front of this pile of medication and I was trying to memorize what's before food, what tincture to take after food for digestion, what's before on an empty stomach or before sleep. And I remember how I burst into tears because I had more medication at that point than my grandmother did. And I was like, I'm a failure. I'm hopeless. There's nothing that's going to come out of me. And this is when I started to kind of have a better understanding and connection of what's going on inside of me.
Yeah.
And I was always a foodie. I loved food. Food would always bring me joy. And I started cooking early on and had this connection to, organ meats were always part of our, our family's meals because it's just only natural because we were only eating our homegrown animals like cows, pigs, or chickens. And when I moved to the United States, I moved as a young rebel because taking care of the farm is very time consuming and labor consuming. Yeah. And as a young, beautiful teenager, young woman, I was like, I told my family, you guys are all losers. You can buy all this stuff, right? You don't have to slave your days and weekends away. This is all, available for purchase at the supermarket. So by the age of 18, I got everything together and I moved to New York City.
Wow.
I came to New York City.
At 18?
Yes.
Wow.
Didn't speak a word of English.
Really?
Didn't know anyone. I was like a puppy, smiling and nodding. And I was like, I'm going to
How did you know you wanted to go to New York?
I always had big dreams. I knew I was born in the wrong place. I always knew I have this big life ahead of me.
Yeah.
And the truth is, have you read The Alchemist of Paulo Coelho?
Of course.
Yes. You know how he searches the entire world for the treasure and then he finds it where? Exactly where he started. There is a beautiful story how this one man was reading my palm in New York City when I worked on Wall Street. And he said to me, you're going to end up close to the land, somewhere on the farm. I'm like, what? I'm running away from it my whole life. And through, nutrition studies and NYU, when I started supporting local farmers, and I realized the health is actually there, but only when you manage the stress and your attitude towards life. This is where the optimal chances for longevity arise. And that's why the method that I've created, that's where the gut brain method, where I combine nutrition science with mindfulness. So I became a yoga instructor and a health coach, in addition to becoming a medical nutrition therapy specialist. And it's very important for me when I work with my clients. Most of them come to my office and they're so hard on themselves.
Yeah.
Like the last few pounds, this thing. And I just look at them and I was like, when was the last time you experienced self-kindness? This is my client you're talking about in such a mean way. And they just burst into tears. So I guide a lot of healing meditations, like inner child meditations for them. And I include all those recordings as part of my program. And this would change, or the breath work I guide for them. And these things really create lasting difference on their emotional well-being, which, if given half the chance, your body will take it and it will thrive, even if you don't eat broccoli every day.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I resonate with that story so much.
Thank you.
So I actually grew up in Florida, not far from here. Same at 15. For me, it manifested as PCOS first. And then it turned into hypothyroidism. And then it turned into gut health issues by the time I was living in New York. And just like you said, I wasn't raised on a farm eating organ meats, but I was raised by a really healthy family. And it felt like a mystery to everybody. Like my parents literally look like fitness models. And I was carrying 30 pounds of extra weight. I was just, now I'm able to recognize I was so inflamed. And it's so funny that you say that the palm reader told you that while you were in New York too. First of all, I love a palm reading. I love a palm reading. And I was always the person that was like, I'll never move back to Florida. I remember when I had dinner with my husband's parents for the first time, they were like, so would you ever move back? I was like, no. And being back has actually been so healing for me.
It's been very good to my soul, as I've been saying, like to step into my feminine, to connect with my emotions and feelings, and to be able to communicate the value of it, even in a different way, to those who come from Northeast and they're so disconnected, because that's where intelligence is, celebrated. And most people, like, if you're intelligent and you know how to speak the right thing, this should be enough for you to be happy. But turns out it's not.
No, I feel like to some degree it can almost be the enemy of happiness sometimes, because I don't know about you, but for me, a lot of the times in different chapters of my life, I could just see all the things. Like, I had so many goals in front of me that I was so focused on where I wanted to go, I wasn't enjoying the present. And I feel like when I speak to a lot of people who spent a good amount of time in New York, they resonate with that because it's so goal oriented. Everybody's working so hard to get to where they want to go. So hard
on themselves.
Yeah, and it's like, and the time you do spend like enjoying yourself is numbing to some degree. That's so interesting. So you got to New York at 18. You're, like you said, this like brand new puppy. I assume you learned to speak English very quickly.
Yes, I have multiple degrees. So I went to school, I started working, and that's how I learned English.
Okay. And you worked on Wall Street, you said?
Yes.
Wow.
As a young immigrant in New York City, I was like, where do you go to make a living?
Yeah.
You go to Wall Street, baby. So that's where I ended up. And as a young girl, I striving to be someone important in New York City. I became what's called the product of the environment. Right? Everyone needs to be someone busy, competitive, and just making the most out of your life, which is very emotionally strangling. And this is when I ended up on Wall Street, and I looked around, and I'm in this office, a girl from nowhere. My town is not even on the world map. And I'm in Manhattan, walking up and down Park Avenue, and I have this office on 49th floor with the, glass walls, floor to ceiling. And I look around and I was like, I don't want to be here. my boss is not inspiring. She doesn't see her children. She doesn't look good. She's not healthy. I don't want to be her.
Yeah.
And all these men that surrounded me, I had to compete with them.
Yeah.
And I was very hard on myself. I was working out every day, kickboxing, skydiving, Wall Street Journal at 7 a.m. I called sleep a waste of time.
Yeah.
I was like, who's got time for that if you could do all these incredible things? This is when, in New York City, the culture of dieting started to pick up. I tried every diet. I was vegan, raw vegan, because all these restaurants opening up, like raw vegetarian or vegan restaurants. I've tried all of that. Then I studied yoga and I thought Ayurvedic diet's going to save my life. And then there's a trendy macrobiotic diet. I was like, they know something that I don't. I'm going to figure this out. And then there was paleo, pescatarian, vegetarian. I tried it all. And when yoga came into my life, I made a decision to transition from Wall Street and make a career out of it. I became a health coach.
Wow.
I started working in Mount Sinai on a research project, educating lower income communities on healthier lifestyle.
Okay.
And with that, decided to make a career out of it. And, in order for you to be competitive in New York City, you had to get a proper degree. So I enrolled into a master's program at NYU to get a degree in clinical nutrition, which is a medical license. And I had to, after I did all the theory, then there's a residency program for 1 year, after which I became a licensed professional. So with that, I'm licensed to work with people of different health conditions.
Right.
But I obviously chose longevity and disease prevention because I'm so passionate about it. It's like I live and I breathe. This is my lifestyle. And to make it mainstream and to be able to communicate it to different population groups. So my clients now are mostly, high-performing individuals, just like myself, 10 years ago when I was confused and tried every diet. And, those are the people that I help these days.
And that was your first book, right? We have it right here, Cooking for
That was
High
my
Performers.
First book. Yeah, as a New Yorker who lived in New York City for 14 years, I never downloaded a food delivery app. Can you imagine? When my friends come over, they're like, oh, I'll just order food. I'm like, you do it. I don't have an app for that, because I would make all of my meals from scratch.
Oh, I love that.
Yes, and all of these recipes that I've included in this book, this used to be like a PDF guide for my clients that I would give during the sessions. And like, this is how you make these recommendations work. These are easy recipes on the go. Because if I were to make 3 meals a day, and if every single one of them takes more than 15-20 minutes, I'll be in the kitchen all day. I don't have time for that. So all of my recipes are very straightforward, simple, easy, with functional ingredients, food shopping list, and everything that I recommend to my clients. So when I started working on a news channel, I've made over 35 recipes from this book. That's how easy it is. The news channel episodes are very short and straightforward. If it's complex, we don't have time for that.
Right.
Yeah, but guess what? They're all delicious. And I'm absolutely proud of this book. Yeah, and there's a lot of recipes from my childhood.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Kind of brings it all full circle.
Yeah, the beet soup, the fancy red cabbage salad, which, when you recommend green leafy vegetables to people, most people think like lettuce, arugula, spinach, kale. I'm like, guess what? You can have a red cabbage salad. Actually, I think I said green, right? Red cabbage salad, which is from the same family, but most people don't even think about it.
Right.
So I put a spin on a red cabbage Israeli salad.
Ooh.
And I put like walnuts, blueberries, and it's stunning.
Oh, yeah. I need to incorporate some more diversity into my diet. So I'm going to get myself a copy of that.
Diversity and variety is key to a healthy gut microbiome. So it's not enough to just eat not enough to eat spinach and kale once in a while and broccoli, right? There's a lot more of cruciferous vegetables that we shouldn't be incorporating.
Right. It's like incorporating. I had an acupuncturist tell me a while ago, you should be able to name 200 different things that you eat over the course of a week. And I was like,
what? Your acupuncture is on the next level.
Right?
The research says 30.
She did say, she was like, spices and herbs count. And I was like, okay.
Okay. In terms of vegetables, the research on the Human Microbiome Project, they showed that 30 vegetables, 30 plants per week is the optimal.
Okay.
And most people in America do not get even 10.
Yeah. I mean, even myself, it's like, I cook very healthy for my husband and I. But when you really look at it, like if I were to look at the meals I've made over the last few weeks, it's probably 5 meals that I keep on rotation because they're just in my brain, and it's just
all it takes is to try a new recipe, and there you go. Now you have a new habit of how to make it. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I love that so much. So that was your first book, Cooking for High Performers. And then you moved into, was your next phase the You-tarian diet?
That's from my years of clinical work. When clients come to my office, when I moved to Florida, I established my wellness practice at the #1 wellness resort in Miami Beach. And in my office, people would come in always asking me the same question. Because I trend in longevity and disease prevention, most clients come to me are very educated and knowledgeable. They already know what healthy eating is supposed to be like.
Yeah.
And they've tried every diet. And now they're like, because there's so much content available online, like who wants to pay someone for a nutrition advice? Only a person who's tried everything and now is ready to invest himself into something that they feel like they need a personal advice on. So they would come to my office and they would tell me all these things. I'm healthy. I do all the right things. I try to be vegetarian, paleo, carnivore, pescatarian. Nothing works. You tell me. And I would always answer to them, have you tried listening to your body? Have you tried becoming a You-tarian? And so my saying is, if you invest your time, energy, and money into getting to know yourself and your bio-individuality, you'll gain so much peace and power on what it is that exactly your body needs to thrive. Instead of listening to the next advice, this person said that, I heard that, I read that, this documentary said that, and you're feeling so confused because all this information comes from outside in.
Right.
Instead, I switch your perception into, why don't you get answers from inside out?
Yeah.
And with that, create this mind-body connection, close the loop, that suddenly you don't care what everyone else is saying. You don't even care what everyone else is doing. You're just doing you. And it gives you so much peace and empowerment. And that's why I wrote my second book called The You-tarian, where I trademark the term and I outline all of the tools that everyone should know about and try to either learn or invest into for getting all the data and information from underneath their skin.
I love that. So do you use any kind of testing to help your clients determine like what is agreeing with them versus not agreeing with them?
Yeah. We'll begin with the general blood panel, right? We want to assess all your basic hormones, thyroid hormones, or some of the deficiencies. That's where we begin. Most of my clients that come to me have already done that. They figured out the deficiencies with either supplements or their maybe food intake or not. This is where I help. This is the basic. This is the foundation. That's why I work with a lot of doctors, because I'm not a doctor, even though I can prescribe the blood panel and I can review it, but I love working with the doctors that they can figure that out. And then the next thing after that, if they still find themselves spinning their wheels and find themselves with nagging symptoms, we do some of the advanced testing. For example, one of my favorite tests that changed my life around 15 years ago when I transitioned from Wall Street to wellness, there was a dietitian. When I tried every diet, there was a dietitian that did this test for me that I now do for my clients. It's called Food Sensitivities and Intolerances.
Oh, I was going to ask if you like
it's a personalized nutrition and data advice on what the foods, instead of using all this generic advice, just avoid all the carbs or eat all the proteins or avoid all the sweeteners or all the gluten or all the dairy, right? Find out what exactly that your body is thriving or is developing these symptoms on. So this blood panel on antibodies called IgG and IgA is specific to food proteins in your blood that are triggering immune conditions and your immune system. That panel changed my life when it was no longer what I've heard somewhere. It was like, my body is telling me this and I better listen. So this is when I changed my relationship with food entirely. And now I'm that dietitian. And actually, my office was exactly at the same spot where I did it.
Really?
Yes. When I moved to Florida, I told someone this story and I'm like, I should just go there and introduce myself. And I walk in and they tell me like, we need you. And I established my practice exactly in the same spot. It used to be Canyon Ranch.
Yeah. I love Canyon
15
Ranch.
years ago. So now it has changed, different management, but this is exactly where my office was, where it's all began for me.
Funny.
Yeah. And this diet that we give, the elimination diet, it's usually developed for like 3 weeks to 3 months. I kept it for the rest of my life. And yeah, but your immune system and your reactions change over the years depending on your gut microbiome, right? So sometimes it's not enough to just give the diagnosis, avoid this for the rest of your life, right? So I give my clients some solutions. Sometimes if it's gluten and dairy, guess what? Life happens. Italy happens, right? You can't avoid it for the rest of your life. So I give them specific enzymes that help them to digest certain things. Or we work on optimizing gut microbiome, and we see a lot of difference, a lot of autoimmune conditions and even allergies. They all stem from gut health. That's why the third test that I do as part of my program is gut health test, which is very comprehensive. And we see a ton of opportunities for improvement in my clients, and all of the autoimmune conditions just go away.
Do you use a GI map test for the gut test?
Yeah. Okay. GI effects,
GI effects, okay.
By Genova Diagnostic is my absolute favorite.
Yeah. I actually just did one of those.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to review it with my
functional test also changed my life 5 years ago when after becoming a clinical medical nutrition therapist, and I've established my practice, I worked with a lot of people with different glucose balancing, weight loss, and gut health. Then, around 5 or 6 years ago, I developed eczema. As a young, beautiful girl with glowing skin, this came out of nowhere.
Skin is flawless.
Thank you. And this is how I, used to, have it. And then when it came back, and I was working, I always worked with doctors and longevity clinics. They gave me all these different detoxification programs. Nothing helped. It came back the next month in a different part of my body. I knew it. I got to look at the root cause. That's when I did the stool test for myself, diagnosed myself with parasites, did the whole antibacterial, anti-parasitic treatment with herbs, which most people don't do. And to this day, I don't talk about it on social media because not everyone has parasites. Not everyone needs anti-parasitic treatment. But I did that, never had eczema since then.
Really?
Yes. And since then, developed the specialty in gut health because of the results that I developed for my, made for myself and my clients. So many clients. Now, all of my clients are estheticians, dermatologists, they're all nurses, and people who really, they want to be the walking example of the health, but sometimes no one is somehow impervious of anything, and even I eat the best things, but I swim in the ocean, I go out, and I eat sushi, and it can happen to anyone.
So do you do a parasite cleanse? Because it's funny that you're talking about this, because I've had 4 different people bring up parasite cleanses to me in the past 2 weeks. Are you a believer that you should do one every 6 months, or really only if you feel a symptom coming out?
Yeah. So after you learn that you have one, which takes diagnostics, I don't recommend absolutely everyone to do it. Okay. Even my friends are like, oh, just give me the protocol. I'm like, no, you should do the diagnostics. You might find something else. Out of my practice, only 25 people, even less, have parasites.
Oh, wow.
So you don't really need it. But the thing with parasites, all the natural treatments, and the same thing with viral and bacteria and fungi, all we need to focus on is improving your immune system. If your immune system is really strong, and all those recommendations like berberine, oregano, or clove, or black walnut extracts, all of this is targeting your immune system. So when your immune system is really strong, it could keep things dormant, no matter what it is, precancerous cells or parasites or pathogenic bacteria. So I feel like most people would benefit from it, but in such a way, the way I teach my clients after I diagnose them, we do the anti-parasitic protocol, and then I just make sure that this immune supporting protocols is part of their regimen, that they know what to do if they're traveling, if they're overly stressed out, or they're exposed to people. Every time I go out, I feel like I'm being challenged because it's too many people around me. That's when I come back home and I make sure I get the oregano oil, but I don't use it every day. I use it maybe once a week. Oregano oil, like mushroom complex, and the things that help me to boost my immune system.
So just really when you feel like you need
prophylactically I would use it, but really when you're around people who are sick, that's when you need more support. Okay.
Oh, I love this. This is such good information. And then, so when did you make the move from New York to Miami? Because
4 years ago.
You were practicing as a longevity dietitian in Manhattan, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. And then what made you want to make the move? Did you just fall in love with Miami?
No, not really. I think for me personally, just New York stopped making sense.
Yeah.
After all these years of being totally in love with New York City, I would travel the world, always would come back to New York. Like, this is the best place on the planet. But just after pandemic, it's just changed so much.
Yeah.
And paying so much money. I lived right next to Central Park, and I was killing myself, working long hours, and the quality of life was just not the same.
Yeah.
That's when Florida suddenly started to make sense.
Right.
And when I moved here, I never looked back. Florida has been really good to my soul, to my career, to just like in general, my life's here.
I love that. I
My
love
dreams, same with Florida. Here, I was able to tap into this version of me, just to be here. It's such an honor to be here. You know, I remain very humble, even though everyone sees me as a celebrity now. My job is to connect with people and to create difference in their hearts and their bodies.
Yeah.
And so Florida has given me this platform and opportunities here that I didn't see myself doing that in New York or connecting in such way.
Yeah. There's a really strong wellness community down here.
Yeah.
Same as I've officially moved down and really gotten more immersed. Like, it's funny, like I said, I grew up down here, but really, I guess I had to start looking for it and be in the right place mentally myself to be open to it. Yeah. But I've made such amazing connections and friendships, all very like-minded people. It's been really, really lovely. So talk to me a little bit about, because your newest endeavor is really the gut brain method, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that they say your gut is your second brain.
Yes.
And I've heard some people say, actually, it's your first brain because it's directing so much.
It's not scientifically correct, but yeah.
Okay.
Say that.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you, because I figured you would be a good authority on this topic. Would you say it's the first or the second brain?
I got into the gut health from so many different perspectives. Okay. One was skin, very visible, right away symptom that you're like, whoa, like this is really affecting me. So whatever's going on inside of me shows up. So this is why I teach so many estheticians and dermatologists right now, because they see results right away.
Yeah.
Right. For everyone else who doesn't have skin issues, it could be a little bit like harder to understand the connection, but I'll give you a little bit of scientific connection of it. So you are what you eat. You've heard this oversimplified statement before, and it's actually true. However, there's a lot of different processes that go on inside of our bodies from the moment we take a bite of our food or this chocolate cake that we like to the moment we see or think about it again, which doesn't happen until we see it in the toilet bowl. Even then doesn't happen, right? So most of us take what's going on inside of us for granted. We somehow assume it takes care of itself on its own, the digestion and whatever's happening there. Not a lot of people want to talk about it. And all the bacteria, it's the fermentation inside of you. It's not very glamorous. But with science and emergent scientific evidence showing now that everything that's going on inside of us affects our overall well-being, including our mood, energy levels, our hormone levels, and our systematic inflammation, which is a cause of early aging. You know how people say, oh, you get older and your metabolism slows down? What I say is that when you take care of things, they last. Yeah. So everything you consume on a daily basis has the potential to change the way you feel and look. Over 80% of immunity starts in your gut health. And one of the gut-brain connection is defined by this neurotransmitter called serotonin. Over 70% of serotonin, which is responsible for well-being, and this, they call it the happy hormone, the hormone of wellness, for us to have less anxiety.
Right.
It all comes from your gut. So we have direct relationship and direct impact on what's going on inside of us, and food affects what's going on. And so every time you eat, you have the potential to change your gut microbiome. And so what science shows is that people with anxiety and depressions, they are very frequently diagnosed with low levels of serotonin, and there's a direct association with dysbiosis. And dysbiosis is an imbalance of gut bacteria, where you have more of the bad bacteria and not enough of a good, because bad bacteria thrives on carbs, sugar, and stress, because what stress does is it kicks you out of parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for rest and digest, into fight or flight. And every time you're in fight or flight, you're not digesting. Your body's not able to prioritize well-being. And every time you're there, that means your digestion is shut down. That means that this is when you grow the dysbiosis. And the more you do that, the more chances you'll develop anxiety and depression. And it's all comes from, and when you're stressed out, you don't really think about vegetables, right? People just want like a quick gratification, something sweet or something. Most people don't even want to eat. They don't have appetite when they're stressed out. And when they do, what they do, they reward themselves for working really hard, long hours with what? With comfort food, which is mostly carbs and a lot of sugar, or like starchy carbs like breads, pizzas, or pastas, right? So this is where it all starts. And now people have done, like some of my colleagues from Harvard have developed an entire field of nutritional psychiatry, where they treat people with anxiety and depression with food. So bringing it back to the gut-brain connection, right? There's a direct correlation and the communication between your gut and your brain 2 ways. And one of them is the serotonin development. It's so easy. And now I make my clients, even those who don't like vegetables, we put experiments for them. Just do it for 10 days and see what happens, right? And even myself, I see what happens. For example, when I travel and I've had like weeks of stress of doing different events at the same time, and I don't get to eat as good as I usually do, I feel myself more anxious or more responsive or reactive. I was like, wow, even though I take probiotics, which helps, but it's so important to eat the foods that is anti-inflammatory. And I can get into the 6 foods that absolutely everyone should know that I covered in my TED Talk. Yes, to improve your microbiome and to lower your chances of dysbiosis.
Yeah, please tell us, what are these 6 foods?
Okay. Yeah, so I did my TED Talk, it's called Professional Foodie, How to Fall in Love with the Food That Loves You Back. Because this is, my job is to make people eat healthier, right? But I don't want to be the food police, eat this, don't eat that. For me, it's all about the love. If you really enjoy eating this, this is a win. Instead of I have to eat this because someone told me and this is good for me, but I hate it, but fine, I'll just, force myself. That's not it, right? So how to fall in love with the foods that love you back is all about falling in love with the right nutrient-dense foods. And number 1 nutrition recommendations that I go for is cruciferous green leafy vegetables. Kind of what I mentioned earlier with red cabbage salad. It's those vegetables, what we call them in nutrition world, free food, because they're very low in calorie, but they're high in fiber and antioxidants. Your liver loves the fiber, and it loves the green leafy vegetables. And the greener the vegetable, the more sulforaphane it has, which is a powerful antioxidant, which helps your liver to detoxify and balance the cholesterol levels.
Can I ask you a question? Yes. What's your take on kale?
Really depends for a lot of people. Some people are sensitive to it, but for most people, it's fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I've just heard, some loud voices in the longevity space really demonizing kale. Yeah. And that's what,
this is a first world problem that I call. Most people in our society don't eat enough vegetables. Yeah. And the problems in their system is not because of kale. Right. Okay. And this is something that when people are trying to remain up in the trends, they need to come up with these loud, confusing statements. Right. And then you always have to ask this, are they talking to me? Is this really relatable to me? How do I feel off of kale? So I truly there's so much science on the benefits of kale. Right. So I would rather focus on that and see for yourself. Remove it for the gold standard of nutrition science and personalized nutrition science that I cover in my book is elimination diet. Eliminate this food for 21 days out of your system, see how you feel. And when you reintroduce it, there's a symptom tracker that we offer, and then see how it feels. And then integrative symptoms, which are not anaphylaxis, that's very immediate, but there's a more delayed response symptoms. Those are the ones like skin rash or low energy or the changes in the color of your nails or your eyes. So that all has to do with your kidneys, and what they're claiming is how it like affects your kidney health, where in reality for most people that's not where it comes from.
Okay. Yeah. The common sense brain to me always said like, okay, sure. Like we were talking about, biodiversity in your diet is so important.
Yeah.
So, a few years ago, specifically when I was living in New York, it was like every restaurant was shoving kale into every meal, breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And I was always kind of like, okay, I understand, like, if we're not supposed to be eating like pounds of it per week.
Yeah.
But like, it just didn't make sense to me that it would be like this demonized food. Like, it's this dark green leafy vegetable. That's like the gold standard of healthy food.
There's so much science on sulforaphane.
Yeah.
And these people are now taking sulforaphane in supplement form, but avoiding kale, which doesn't make sense at all for me. It's the same thing like when they're avoiding protein, animal protein, and they're taking protein in the shakes. And this is just so far away from a natural way of living.
Right.
And I love the Blue Zones research, how it just comes back to, like I said, natural way of living. If I were to put you on the island, which Blue Zones most are, where there's no Amazon delivery, when there is no Whole Foods, how would you survive? Would you survive out of these bags delivered? No, you would have to figure out your own way. You will have to eat some of the vegetables, because during the summer, all you have are green leafy vegetables.
Right.
And then during the winter, you don't have much. So it's like, I cover the seasonality as well. Most people try to simplify it. It's like, just eat this and this and figure it. And you can't eat. We're not designed to be eating the same thing 365 days a year.
Yeah.
You have to be living in harmony with nature.
So, question for you, because you mentioned, we're not meant to only eat certain way. So do you think, for example, a raw vegan diet for many years at the time is the right choice for anyone?
No.
Okay.
None of it. Not even the raw carnivore diets, which also trending right now. And it's a great experiment for some time, but the key, it's not sustainable. And it's something that I cover in my upcoming book. A first chapter is all about emotional well-being. So as children, we learn to, when we're young, we learn to control, we understand we can't control anything in life. The first thing we learn to control is what comes inside of us, right? So the food is the easiest thing to control. And when we start having any issues in life, we realize the more we become adults, there's nothing we can control except for one thing, the food. That's why these diets are such a trendy subject in all of the healthcare industry, because those people who want to have control in life, they realize this is it. Right. And that's why for most people on the very restricted diets, I just hold space for them. I've had so many vegans in my office that turned into carnivores. And guess what? I just hold space for literally those people that are protesting at Bloomingdale's, how bad animals, the same people like cooking steak for me and inviting me for their parties, So I just see that as such a restrictive mindset. It tells me a lot about inner world, what's going on inside of them, and how they really need to hold on to something in life that they could control. And the food and what they're trying to figure out is something that gives them the peace. And this is just something like through education and mindfulness and holding space, you lead people into a more balanced approach to a sustainable nourishment.
When you're talking about the You-tarian diet, you were talking about food sensitivities and things like that. So there's, I'm very gluten intolerant, for example. And like you said, your intolerances change over time. Yeah. But as a general rule for everyone, would it be fair to say that everyone should follow some sort of an omnivorous diet, not completely taking out animal proteins or taking out, carbs, for example, like a keto? Like, I just feel like there's all these extremes, the keto.
A lot of extremes, but most of the science is trending in the middle, a Mediterranean style approach, which is a lot of plant foods, diversity of plant-based vegetables and fruits and grains and nuts, and balanced intake of protein. Right. Fish and 4 to 5 times a month of red meat.
Okay.
So at least once a week.
So
I
like
recommend,
a weekly dose
yes,
of red
I
meat.
recommend red meat like a medicine at least once a week.
Yeah.
But especially for women on their luteal phase,
Yeah.
we need more protein. Yeah, it really depends on the goals, what they're trying to do with life. If it's a fertility issue or if it's like a weight loss issue, that's when we kind of tweak, the intake. But for me, it's the Mediterranean diet where most diets that you mentioned, they have a big marketing plan behind them, right? And they have this vulnerable population groups that are what I just described as trying to make sense and get some control. And when you're eliminating a huge chunk of food groups out of your diet, whether it's entire animal-based products for vegans or the carnivores when it's entire, vegetable section, right? It just gives you such a peace, right? So you've kind of figured that out. Whereas when I give you this harmony and balance, it's like it's all over the place. It's hectic, right? You have to find, every day things are changing and it's not for everyone. But I think that's where we want to move a lot of people. Someone who specializes in nutrition education, I trend somewhere in the middle where there's a reason nutrition science exists and there's a reason all food groups matter.
Okay. I love
to
that.
different people, personalization, yes. Some people might be food sensitive to certain vegetables or to certain proteins. It's mostly proteins. And yes, that's why, when clients come to me, I always call myself as someone who interprets their body to them.
Okay.
They come to me, I'm supposed to know what's good for them. I'm like, I don't know. But your body knows. Why don't we ask your body and do all the testing, do all the data, and you act on that. And I connect your mind to your body. And then suddenly it's no longer, I do this because Ella told me. No, I do this because this is what's good for my body. And I took time, energy to invest into it, to learn all of this. And this is why, and this is the most peaceful and empowered approach that we want to teach our children.
Yeah.
I always tell my clients, it's not what you say, it's what you do. And even if your children hate broccoli, they'll see you eating it. They'll remember, even when you're gone, they'll remember what you ate and how you did it and how they didn't appreciate it or whatever, or like they didn't like it, but it's going to come back to them. And it's all about this attitude around it.
Right. Oh, I love that. Okay, so I totally sidetracked us, but so leafy greens,
green leafy vegetables,
green leafy vegetables,
high fiber foods. My number one recommendations.
Okay,
yeah, for most people don't get enough of them.
How many grams of fiber a day would you recommend for most people?
For women, it's around 18. For men, 25.
Okay,
but fiber is essential. I am such a big advocate for fiber and protein in every meal. When people are telling me how they're afraid of animal-based products because of the cholesterol issue, I will tell them it's not a cholesterol issue that you have a fiber issue. Because fiber acts like a bulk. It massages your gut from inside out because it's undigestible. It keeps you regular and it keeps you detoxified on a daily basis by absorbing some of the toxins, including LDL cholesterol. So if you're not eating enough fiber, sometimes when clients come to me, I prescribe them some certain fiber like psyllium husk or acacia or inulin and it's beneficial for everything, for your immune system, for your gut microbiome to multiply healthy bacteria and to detoxify and lower your cholesterol.
This is getting a little in the weeds, but do you recommend that somebody take like a psyllium husk fiber with a meal or alone?
No, not with the meal, alone. Okay. Usually, I'm a big advocate for synergy. So I'd rather you eat a high fiber vegetable meal instead of, so for me, psyllium husk, I use it as a medicine.
Okay.
Something that one of my greatest recommendations for weight loss and metabolic health optimization is fasting.
Okay.
Overnight fasting. Very easy. You sleep for 7 to 8 hours. Build on that. Okay. Avoid food intake 3 to 4 hours before that if you can. And if you can't, have psyllium husk, 1 or 2 tablespoons. Takes all the appetite and edge away so you could sleep well because it's very filling. 1 to 2 tablespoons of psyllium husk is only 15 to 30 grams of calories, but it thickens like a cup of yogurt. And when you eat that, you sleep well because a lot of people can't sleep well with fasting because they're hungry.
Right.
And that takes the edge away and keeps them full on low calories and high fiber.
So you put a tablespoon or two into a glass of water.
Yeah.
Let
yeah.
it thicken.
Yeah.
Is it
Or
like
the same way, for example, if you have a late night dinner you're going to and you don't want to arrive there starving,
right?
or you skip the meal or something, you can use that as something to take the edge off because it fills you up on the low calories and only benefits from it.
I'm gonna have to try that.
Yeah.
I used to put it in my smoothies.
Yeah.
And it was very filling in that way,
Yeah.
but like sometimes almost too filling with
Yeah,
a smoothie.
exactly. It's too filling because if smoothie is already, a rainbow of nutrition,
Right. I'm
nutrient
already
density. If you
packing
put like nuts, protein,
spinach,
fats,
yeah.
and fiber. Yeah, I don't do it. Like I do it on its own.
Okay.
Sometimes I do it in the morning if I want to build on my fasting in the morning and skip breakfast.
Okay.
So I would have psyllium husk with my chia seeds or lemon juice and drink that, and it keeps you full for hours.
Do you do the chia and the psyllium husk in the same
Chia
drink?
is my favorite, actually. It's my
love
absolute
chia.
go-to. That's what I talk on TV. Like you could just mix it with water and drink it, and it becomes like what's the boba
gelatinous.
tea? Yes.
Yeah.
And it's so delicious. And when you make it overnight, the chia seed puddings, all the high fiber content. And the chia seed is also high in omega-3 for plant-based people. Omega-3 is... You don't let me get there, but this is one of my next recommendations: omega-3 rich foods. Yeah,
Okay.
essential.
Yeah, I do a chia. I do like a half overnight oat, half chia seed pudding every morning. That's like my work day breakfast because it just keeps me like full enough and even to get me over till lunch without being like
and
over
it's high
full.
fiber foods, and your gut thrives on high fiber foods.
Yeah,
This
I
is
love
what it
that so
means,
much. Okay, yes, I'm sorry I said
All right. Number 2 nutrition recommendation are berries. Colorful, antioxidant-rich berries.
Okay.
And berries are my superfoods, superheroes in terms of colorful, antioxidant-rich plant-based foods because of the fiber content in all the seeds and the antioxidant load. Yes, the fruits are on the same category, but I tend to prioritize berries because they have a lower glycemic index and they pack up a ton of nutrition. Try to guess which one is dietitian's favorite berry to recommend. And while you're thinking, it's not blueberry. While you're thinking, I'm going to explain the load of antioxidant, how to recognize a rich antioxidant-rich berry or the fruit is the color. Antioxidants are responsible for bright colors.
Okay.
And what do you think?
Well, I was gonna say a blackberry.
Okay.
Because it has so much color, but you said bright color, so now I'm thinking maybe raspberry.
No, it's actually cranberry.
Oh.
Cranberry is pure fiber and vitamin C.
Ooh,
which is a ton of antioxidant.
Yeah.
One of the most researched antioxidants for immunity. And it's all fiber. 0 sugar. That's why it's so sour. No one likes to eat it because every other berry's got a little bit of sugar, right? And I absolutely love recommending cranberry to all of my clients in a frozen form because it's a seasonal berry.
Right.
But you can add it to your smoothies. You can taste it behind a little bit of other berries,
right?
Like cherries or pomegranates or bananas. But it's a daily dose of vitamin C, and that's what I tell my clients. Don't wait until your immune system is challenged with urinary tract infection. Do it every day. You'll never get one.
Oh, right. That's what they recommend for you.
So I really focus, I'm going to get into the other 4 foods, packing up your day with the nutrient dense foods. I think I have a couple of recipes with cranberries here. One way is to add them to smoothies. Another one is to make the dressing with them.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and to add them to salads, mix them with apple cider vinegar and blend it. I wanted to say how to recognize antioxidant-rich foods.
Oh, yeah.
And my saying is, if it has the potential to stain your clothes, that's the one you should go for, meaning the bright, deep colors. Things like cherries or pomegranates, those are the best in terms of antioxidant load. And the same way, how to recognize the foods that are more beneficial is the color. It's always the color. The difference between lettuce and kale, they really is the difference in the color. And the deeper, the brighter the color, the more antioxidant it has. And that's what our gut thrives on. And the same, the difference between blueberries, wild blueberries and regular store-bought blueberries. What is the difference? Have you ever had a wild blueberry?
Yeah, I buy them.
Your whole mouth turns purple.
Yeah. Like,
that's what's
I got to
good
be
for-
careful when
Yeah.
I put them in things because I'm like
That's
covered.
what your gut
yeah.
needs. And those antioxidants are heart protective. They're protective of high blood pressure. This is what we need. Transitioning here right away into omega-3. Number 3
Okay.
recommendation is omega-3 fatty acids.
Okay.
And one of the best ones, salmon.
Right.
And I'm just going to pick up on what I just said about colors. What's the difference between wild-caught salmon and farm-raised?
Oh, it's much richer in color. It's
And
so
you know
much.
what is responsible for it? The antioxidant called astaxanthin, which is also a lot of biohackers now supplementing in a pure supplement concentrated form. But I always advocate my clients to one of the best sources of astaxanthin, which is protective of heart health. It provides stamina for those who exercises and overall metabolic health, is actually salmon eggs. Salmon raw. Yeah, it's basically omega-3 capsules in a natural form. The omega-3 phospholipid is there in this phospholipid form, which is purely digested and absorbed, and it's pure fat. Pure omega-3s. I love recommending salmon eggs. And it's, how brightly orange it is. So the bright orange color is responsible for the astaxanthin antioxidant.
Oh, that's great.
And so this is the reason actually why you should be getting wild-caught salmon, because of the color. And same thing for shrimp and lobster. They're all orange, and that's what's in there.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
Yeah. Other things like trout, salmon, sardines, anchovies, and those are the best ones in terms of small fatty fish. The smaller it is, the better, because it has less mercury, more omega-3s, which is remarkably beneficial for brain health and as an anti-inflammatory compound. So I love recommending omega-3. So 10 years ago when I studied nutrition science at NYU, one of the professors was covering omega-3, and she said, anyone here in the audience of the students supplementing with it? I was the only person who raised my hand, and she's like,
Really?
you and I, you're gonna go far, because we're the only people. I'm teaching this, you already know all of this. You're the only person in this whole audience who supplements already. You already know all of this. Yeah, because I graduated from IAN before I went to NYU.
Yeah. We were talking about that before we started recording.
Yeah,
that we both did
omega-3s. Now there's so much scientific evidence on how it helps to prevent early cognitive decline.
Yeah.
And even Alzheimer's and depression.
Yeah, I love an omega-3. What's your take on C15?
Not sure.
Okay.
Not my go-to recommendation.
It's a little bit of a newer product.
Yeah.
There's a brand that has it called Fatty 15, and I feel like I'm sure you've seen.
Yeah.
They're great with their marketing.
Yeah.
But it's essentially a new type of fatty acid, and it's found in dairy, whole fat dairy and things like that. But it's super interesting. Just to know.
I love, because I test the comprehensive gut health. So we test for short chain fatty acids, which is a product of fermentation in your gut. And one of my top recommendations is ghee. Because dairy fats are extremely beneficial and anti-inflammatory, and ghee is the only product on the market that's pure fat. Anything else like butter, milk, it all has proteins, which a lot of people, including myself, are sensitive to. Ghee is 100% fat, and this is where it's Ayurvedic, and it's been used even for people who don't eat any dairy. So it's extremely beneficial because of the butyric acid, which is, the short chain fatty acids are extremely beneficial for mitochondrial health and the protective of disease development.
So is ghee your go-to cooking fat?
Absolutely, yes.
Oh, yeah?
Yes,
Okay.
I love cooking with ghee, and my house I only use olive oil and ghee.
Olive oil and ghee. Yeah. And ghee has a high smoke point, right?
Yes.
So it's nice for if you're cooking something on a high heat.
And it doesn't go bad because it's clarified. It's pure fat.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I'll have to buy some more ghee. I used to cook with ghee all the time, and then I just kind of forgot about it for a little bit.
These trends.
I know,
to
right?
Remind it's all it is. It's to remind people about certain things. And I pack up a lot of density into it to get ready for the PhD in nutrition. You ready for the next recommendation?
Yes, I am.
All right. So number 4 top nutrition recommendation are fermented foods.
Okay.
Yes, another 0-calorie food packed with electrolyte and probiotic. As a dietitian, I love these foods that absolutely everyone should be able to incorporate, and they're low calories, so there's no excuse not to incorporate that. I know some people don't like the taste of it, but I recorded a YouTube video on how I tasted all of these different brands, and I was like, I'm gonna find the one that you guys gonna love, because sometimes it's like it's an acquired taste, especially if you haven't had that. But fermented foods like kimchi or sauerkraut, and even fermented pickles or fermented beets are extremely beneficial, because what it does is it pre-ferments the fibers and vegetables for you,
right?
Which if you really want to know, that's actually what happens inside of us when we consume the foods. Our gut ferments it to be able to break it down into the tiny nutrients and to be able to absorb it. And to help your gut bacteria to do its job, you want to provide live bacteria. And the fermented vegetables are extremely beneficial. As you know, the sauerkraut is definitely trending, and it's actually very easy to make it. It's a little bit time consuming. You gotta invest in yourself. I have a recipe for sauerkraut here. It's very easy to make it on your own. All it needs like salt, cabbage, and thyme. When it starts to ferment and it becomes like very bubbly. But fermented foods are extremely beneficial for gut microbiome and preventing dysbiosis. And nowadays it's so easy to buy. It's in every Whole Foods, and I recommend it to my clients to add it to their eggs for breakfast, to add it to like topping to their salad. And there should be no excuses not to, because it doesn't go bad. Another good one. And the same thing with berries that I mentioned, I love recommending, because I'm ready for every excuse, because all my clients, they throw it to me like, no, it goes bad too quickly. I don't have time to shop for berries every 2 days. I'm like, buy them frozen. When they're frozen, they're still nutrient dense. So my freezer is full of berries, cranberries, blackberries, sea buckthorn, black currants. The lesser known, the better they are. But the truth is, like, they have to be deeply colored. And I absolutely love recommending berries. And like my freezer is full of them. So for smoothie, there's no excuse not to incorporate them, because the freezing actually saves, and all of the nutrition remains there just as much, as long as you don't take them out and it becomes softer, and you defrost them and put them back. This is where like the damage of the nutrients might happen. But frozen foods are just nutritionally dense as the fresh ones. And back to fermented foods, they don't go bad very quickly. So you could have them in your freezer. And even if, sometimes I travel and I get home and there's no fresh food, right? But you still have like frozen steak or frozen fish, and you have the sauerkraut and or some avocados, and that's my go-to meal. Yeah,
I love that. I do the same thing. I have a freezer full of frozen veggies and fruits at all times.
Another fermented foods are dairy. Dairy is a sensitive topic for a lot of people. Like they don't do well with conventional dairy, so I recommend A2 milk, which is easily tolerated with a lot of people. And then for those who can't do cow's dairy at all, then there's goat's and sheep's milk products, which I'm a huge fan of. I love the kefir and yogurts and cheeses made of goat's milk, which is hugely beneficial for eye health, and it's easily tolerated by most people. And that's what actually is a huge part of Mediterranean diet, because in those islands in Greece and Italy, they mostly have sheep and goats.
Right, and that's like feta cheese.
And then they have a ton of healthy fats, healthy proteins, and healthy bacteria, healthy probiotics. It's definitely nutrient-packed food, and I highly recommend it.
So you said you're a little bit sensitive to conventional
I don't
dairy,
do dairy
right?
in my house.
So do you do like a kefir or anything like that?
Goat's milk based and sheep's milk based.
Kefir, or sheep's
kefir
milk.
And yogurts and cheeses.
And was that like on your food intolerance test? Did it say
and it's
no
even
cow's
to this
milk?
day, I create so much mucus and so much congestion for me.
I noticed the same thing. I get congested, and I
healed
get drowsy.
so many clients from snoring, just from that alone. You just remove dairy, your skin clears up, and you can breathe throughout the night, and you don't need surgery or the CPAP machine.
My husband, it's so funny. So he is, I'm like the healthy one, and he's the not healthy one, right? I feel like most marriages are that way. He gave up bread and cheese, just bread and cheese, for 60 days at the beginning of the year, essentially just to prove to me that he could. A lifetime of him not being able to wake up in the morning. Since I met him, and his mom said it was always this way, he could never wake up in the morning. It was always like dragging him out of bed. he's popping awake at 6 a.m.
Look at this
with
guy.
no
Completely
bread and
different
cheese.
person.
Completely different person.
Wow.
But I think it was making such a big difference
Yes.
in his ability to breathe that
Yeah,
he's sleeping so much
unfortunately,
deeper.
and there's like, I love dairy products. That's one product that I'm really upset. Like, I grew up eating a lot of cheese and
Yeah.
cow's milk, but I can't tolerate it. And that's just one thing. And even when I do eat it, so
Yeah.
I just do the enzymes.
Okay, so you do like a digestive enzyme
Yeah, but
with
just not
it.
lactase alone, because that's
Right.
where people get confused. Lactase enzymes are only targeting lactose, which is not even a protein; it's a
Right,
sugar in
right.
the milk.
Right.
But most people, the food, like the immune systems, gets triggered by proteins, which are casein and whey. That's what we need to be targeting, and those are different enzymes.
Okay, that's really good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I try to, sneak. He's like a dog. I like sneak him his digestive enzymes when he eats certain things. Gotta like place to the
Oh,
food.
he's so lucky to
I'm
have
half
you.
kidding. But okay, that makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned earlier, things come up, like you said, Italy.
Yeah.
I have 2 Europe trips planned this summer, and I am like, a little part of me is stressed because I want to be able to eat, pasta and all the good things with everybody. But I know the way that it affects me. So what do you recommend for clients when they have something like that coming up?
Yeah, just either take enzymes and see how it feels. The truth is, with gluten, and I studied it extensively, European gluten does not affect us as much because of the processing and the way it's added here and processed here in the state and how it's genetically modified. A lot of people get triggered here, but they're absolutely fine when they go to Europe because of the heirloom grains that they use there. And the European restrictions on the food modifications are much stricter than here.
Okay.
And so this is where you might not even have those symptoms. But if you do, I would give you specific enzymes for gluten and dairy.
Okay, that's
take
really good to know.
alleviate symptoms and to make your life easier.
Is there any brand that you particularly like?
There's a couple of brands. Yeah, one of them is Bio Optimizers. I love using and the other one is Pure Food Encapsulations.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, they
okay.
have specific formulations for gluten and dairy enzymes. That is my go-to.
Oh, that's great to know.
Yeah.
Oh, now that you say that, I remember seeing the Bio Optimizers for gluten and dairy at a conference before.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've sidetracked you again, but I believe we're on food number 5.
Yes. Food number 5 is spices and herbs.
Okay.
In small amounts, but every day, like medication.
Okay.
That's what people use in blue zones. Literally sprinkling them every day on everything. Instead of taking medications in small amounts, they sprinkle oregano, thyme, all of the Italian herbs. They sprinkle them even on fresh salads in Greece. You'd think like the cheese and fresh tomatoes. They put dry herbs on it, or mountain teas. All of those herbs are extremely anti-inflammatory, protective of inflammation in our gut. That's where it all starts. And yet other ones are ginger, turmeric, onions, garlic, cilantro, parsley, dill. They're all helping our not only liver to detoxify, but they're also all those fresh herbs. And this is the key to cooking. Like a lot of my recipes there, I use a lot of herbs.
Okay.
Very simple recipes, but in my pantry, my go-to herbs are like herbe de Provence or Italian herbs blend. And they have a ton of different herbs in there, and it adds so much flavor to the simplest foods.
Yeah.
And I cook for a lot of people in retreats, and I host longevity dinners now, and everyone's like, why is it so flavorful? Why does it taste so good? And I don't know how I'm going to change the American cooking industry, but the problem is they don't add any herbs. It's always like butter and salt and pepper, and it's just and then people come home and like, why does home cooking doesn't taste as good? Well, maybe because you don't add a lot of butter, right? But to make it more flavorful is to add herbs. It's just such a secret to healthy cooking that actually tastes amazing.
Yeah. I remember when I used to live with roommates in New York, one of my roommates was like not the most adventurous or healthy eater. And I would make her try, like I would cook dinner for myself and make her try some every once in a while. And she'd be like, okay, I have never liked broccoli before.
Yeah.
How did you just make me like this broccoli?
Yeah.
And I was like, I added like spices and
Yeah.
herbs
And
to
ghee.
it and ghee.
My
or
favorite way to make broccoli is to steam it with a little bit of water, and then you add ghee to it and some sort of like either herbal salt, or I use truffle salt, and it's like suddenly it's a treat.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love like a special salt, whether it's like a truffle
Yeah.
salt or like Jennifer Fisher has these amazing salt blends that I use in everything. But yeah, it's like you can completely transform a dish with the spices and herbs that you use, especially on vegetables. I love that so much.
Last but not least, I'll mention hydration. Very important. Every time you sip, you have a chance to improve your metabolism. And my favorite hydration sources are green juices, green teas. Matcha is my favorite. That's some of the most potent antioxidants for heart disease prevention. All of the teas, but green tea is the best one. I love recommending juices that are not less trendier than green juices. And my favorite are sour tart cherry juice and cranberry juice, unsweetened in glass jars, organic. But what I've learned through my years in clinical residency at Mount Sinai and NYU, we would recommend people with gout cherry extracts. It's like cherry pills, so just a pure cherry extract. And gout is it's development of buildup of uric acid, what they call it after the king's diet. If you eat too much proteins and fats, and I made it my mission to make this knowledge known. And for all my clients, start early. Don't wait until you develop the uric acid buildup. If you eat a lot of protein, you got to eat a lot of fiber, and you got to use the sour tart cherry, not regular cherries, because they're sweeter. They have higher glycemic intake. They're loaded with sugar, but sour tart cherry, because all the sour and bitter foods, another thing to remember, are so good for our digestion to stimulate our enzymes naturally. I didn't mention, I said green leafy vegetables at first, but I should have said also bitter herbs. Those are extremely beneficial, and all the sour foods, because the sour they are, it means that they have a lot of antioxidants and vitamin C.
Yeah.
So those are my go-to. And the recommendation is to dilute. So I usually put like 1/3 of the juice and the 3/4 of water to dilute and to avoid blood sugar spikes. And pomegranate juice, forgot to mention that one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've been hearing a lot about pomegranate juice for fertility.
Yeah, because for everything, for brain health protection, and to overall, because pomegranate, same with cranberry and sour tart cherry, it's a seasonal berry. We don't have access to it all year round, but at least juice we have.
Right. Yeah. Okay, and I love that, to dilute it with water. That way you're not getting this burst of sugar in your system.
Yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned your longevity dinners and lunches. What was the inspiration behind starting those?
It's Florida. Florida is tricky. I moved here and I didn't have a big community here. And, Florida is a vacation spot. That's where people like very transient environment, and people go in and out. And after I've developed my clinical base here in Florida, I realized I'm missing this community touch. I work on local news channels still, but I love cooking. I love eating with people. I love feeding people. And like, I love just having this engaged conversation. So I decided at some point I was thinking, like, how do I connect? Like, what's the best way to educate people? And I started hosting these lectures in Florida, but I would just make food at those events, because what's the best way to learn about food if not eating and trying? And I love hosting people at my house with every time they come, like, I don't usually like cilantro, but the way you made it, I love it. Or like, I don't usually eat this, and I hear it all the time when people eat the way I cook, because I make it very, nutrient dense. And I started hosting these dinners out of this desire to connect and create community and to unite people from different industries and to bring them, because most of my clients are like finance or executives. They have nothing to do with wellness, and I really connect with them. And I realized, like, the way to educate the leaders is not by lecturing or talking. It's by eating together, feeding them, and to create these meaningful experiences. So over a year ago, I started hosting them in Miami, and it really took off. I've done so many all over the world, in London, all over Switzerland, New York, Los Angeles, and my next one is at Mar-a-Lago. For my birthday, happens to be a very special one.
Well, happy early birthday.
Thank you.
But I saw that you do those longevity meals, and I thought it was such a good idea, because food is so communal, right? And to be able to educate people while enjoying a beautiful meal and kind of showing them exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's such a great idea.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
enjoy
being here
doing it.
today. I
Thank
could
you.
ask you a million more questions, as I'm
No, we
sure
gotta
you
wrap
can
up.
tell.
Yeah.
But I really, really appreciated you sharing your knowledge with us. Where can everybody find you?
Well, my Instagram account and my website, elladavar.com, and my business website is gutbrainmethod.com.
Okay.
And Gut Brain Method Instagram account, that's where you can get a lot of knowledge, free guides. There's a free meal plan there for gut health, and all my guides for different health conditions, parasites and candida, and gut brain reset, and a certification course. I have now started teaching. The Gut Brain Method has now turned into, there's a VIP. You can become a client. Of course, you can work one-on-one, but I also teach now the new generation of gut health practitioners and certify them in gut health science. What I realized in the industry, that most gut health practitioners did not learn it in schools. They learned it through years of working. Most of the doctors, including myself, I had to figure it out through work. And when I started expanding my practice, I realized there's no one to hire. I have to teach them. So I started teaching, and it has now turned into a course. So if you go to gutbrainmethod.com/get certified, you can enroll in a program, and within 9 weeks become a certified gut health practitioner.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So do you have other practitioners that work for you at your practice?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So clients can work with you or one of your practitioners one-on-one, and do you have group sessions
Yes,
as well?
I do host live webinars. The next one is on April 2nd, and it's about gut-skin connection.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, we have very specific webinars and group calls. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to check it all out myself and refer our Pure Form client base. Thank you again.
Thank you. It was an honor to talk to you today.
You too. This podcast was brought to you by Pure Form, a comprehensive wellness center in Boca Raton, Florida. The website is pureformhealth.com, or you can find us on Instagram at pureformhealth. Feel free to message us with any questions, and note that you can connect with our providers for consultations over Zoom, from everything from stem cell therapy to hormone replacement therapy and peptide therapy. That's it for this episode of the Healthspan Collective. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring. Don't forget to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, we'd love for you to rate, review, subscribe, and send it to a friend. We'd also love to connect with you on Instagram. Follow the podcast at Healthspan Collective and me at Nicole J. Doran. And leave us a comment on our latest post, letting us know what you'd like us to cover next.